Now, this is an interesting letter. This letter comes from Franz M. Franz M. And I warn you all, gets a little political. Got some political waters, some choppy political waters coming up. Rob, I'm writing to share my opinion on politics in movies and communicate why I passionately hate, quote, forced diversity in film. Politics, properly defined, is simply the process by which decisions are made that affect large numbers of people. Government is a species of politics. Equality is politics because there's a real debate going on about the best way for everyone to actually be equal. Unfortunately, many social justice warriors act as though their position is the only way to attain equality, and that if you oppose them, you must be a racist or a bigot. Many social justice warriors dishonestly argue that equality isn't politics, implying that his or her political opinions on how to achieve equality is the same thing as equality itself, and that having a different viewpoint is like saying you think women should stay in the kitchen or something. It isn't, Rob, and you have many people in your audience who disagree with your political opinions, why there is a gender wage gap and if we should eradicate it, for example. Have I talked about that? Or just want to talk about movies, not divisive social political issues, because they're sick of being called a racist for having a different point of view. Rob, you are the only person who I can watch discuss political issues because I know that you will allow me to express myself and won't call me any horrible names or think down on me for being different than you. It's why I adore you so much. Oh, thank you very much. Most other creatives scare me away, like John Campea does when he makes videos talking about the backlash to The Last Jedi. I'm worried that most of the show is going to involve a 30-minute Campea-style rant about how evil those of us are who oppose social justice warriors for things like confusing equality of outcome with equality of opportunity. Yes, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. And for saying that because there isn't exactly equal amounts of white people and minorities being cast in movies made in white majority countries with few minority actors, that this is somehow evidence of institutional racism. He has welcomed his opinion, but I personally just want to talk about movies and would rather not hear any divisive political opinions, honestly, because I'm tired of his disrespect. I think the latest Star Wars movies represent a new low in terms of sacrificing plot and character development for the sake of diversity, and this has resulted in some poor films indeed, although that is far from the only problem with these movies. Let me say, first of all, that I do not care about black people or females in stories in general. Lando was black. Who cares? It doesn't matter. What matters is that Lando fits the story, which I agree with. The issue in regards to the newer movies is it seems like they're casting females in roles not because it fits the story, but because they have some pro-feminist leanings that are taking precedence over the story. Like they cast females in positions of leadership purely because they want to prove that females can be leaders too, as if anyone doubted that. Or they made Rey a girl purely because Luke was a boy, so now it's the girl's turn. I think casting characters in a movie to meet the demands of a political worldview and its incorrect notion of equality is ultimately a disservice to not only the art of filmmaking, but also the audience who just wants to be entertained. If you are someone like Kathleen Kennedy seems to be, who will so disservice both filmmaking and your audience for your probably well-intentioned but misguided need for social justice, then there's probably someone out there better suited for your job. While I agree with people like John Campea that it is unreasonable to hate The Last Jedi purely because of its social justice warrior politics, it is also very reasonable to complain about its inclusion in Star Wars, given the fact that previously it was an apolitical franchise not driven by an agenda. It certainly wasn't a social justice warrior franchise. Has anyone ever noticed that the droids in the original trilogy are basically slaves and Chewbacca is a racist stereotype of an alien savage? I would say that if there's anyone saying that just because there's lots of women and even an Asian in The Last Jedi, that means the film is social justice warrior propaganda, that person's a fucking idiot who represents a minority of people, and we should all ignore them instead of giving them the attention they desire and pretending this is a bigger issue than it really is. Or worse, pretending that a small group of individuals, along with everyone else who ever said anything negative online about identity politics, are all backwards cousin-humping rapists or racists. And spare me the backwards logic about how my noting that other people have a political agenda and saying that I don't or want, like it means that I have an agenda, because my noticing they have an agenda and perhaps being irritated by it is not the same thing as having an agenda myself. I will never understand why some people value diversity so much. I understand you, Rob, just want more types of stories told from new perspectives, and that makes complete sense to me. What I mean is, I will never understand why some black people get excited about Black Panther because they're black too, as if the character being like you somehow trumps the quality of the movie. The whole representation argument is just nonsense to me. I am a cripple, but I have never felt the need to see more cripples in movies. I'm not opposed to it per se, I just don't give a fuck one way or the other. Unless they tried to make a cripple-centric action movie, because that sounds like a terrible idea. Because I don't judge anyone by their color, race, or any attribute they did not pick for themselves. If I wanted to play the identity politics game, I could just as easily make the case that the film is bad for black people. Watch, Wakanda is a racist black ethno-state that, of course, being populated by black people, only gained its wealth and superiority through a freak accident of history. I could do that, but I won't, because that's dumb. The movie is not significant for any reason. It's not even the first black film of the genre. I don't think Blade was either, but I miss the days of Blade where nobody cared it starred a black guy and we just loved it because it was a good movie. To be honest with you, Rob, I don't even think true 50-50 diversity in Hollywood of the sort that would make everyone happy is even possible. Not for race, gender, or even sexual preference. Do you remember when ScarJo was set to play a transgendered person and was forced to back out of the role thanks to the public outrageously demanding that only a transgender person in real life play a transgender person on screen? I think these people are vastly overestimating the bankability and availability of trans actors. I truly believe trans people are less than 1% of the population, unless presented with contrary evidence. I'm going to assume a similar statistic can be applied to actors who are trans. But wait, that's not all. You need to consider that only about 1% of actors attain any kind of notable success at all. That means, and forgive me not doing the math, but I'm a bi man, and bi men suck at math for the most part. Look it up. The number of noteworthy trans actors must be astonishingly small. Besides, casting directors can't pick from any actor in the world. They usually put out casting calls, which an agent then has to submit an actor for, which means the actor in most cases needs to be somewhat nearby and able to go into an audition locally. And even then, directors like to stick with actors they know and trust anyway. All of these factors make it very difficult to find trans actors. I'm sorry this is a difficult reality to accept, but then the whole point of acting is to pretend to be something you're not anyway, so who cares? I just wish entertainment would stop their agenda of forced diversity and movie pundits like John Campea would go back to talking about something they're qualified to talk about, movies. Particularly if all they're going to do is spew partisan talking points and insult anyone who disagrees as a basement-dwelling cousin humper. Actors and pundits know about as much as politics as my plumber does, and I don't really want to hear about politics from any of them for that reason. It isn't that I feel a plumber can't believe in equality, it's just that I paid the man to do a job, and I'd like him to do what he's paid for, not show up to my house and while fixing it, deliver a sermon on the gender pay gap. I'd tell that fucker to do his job. Likewise, entertainers, when they are being public entertainers, should be entertaining me and not being my moral compass and making me want to turn off the TV. Franz M. Well, first